titled Your World is Your Temple, and it's focused on how we can save the planet one person at a time, thinking globally and acting locally, and orienting no longer toward your body as your temple mindset, which isn't working very well in today's interdependent, globally intertwined world we live in. This speech was duly inspired from Charles Dennis's speech, The Problem with Plastics, and Tim Nardell's speech, Eat Fast, Live Longer. It's a redo of his first version that he delivered a couple weeks ago, and it is 5 to 7 minutes long. Again, The World is Your Temple, Lionel Shaw.
Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, I'm quickly going to attach the HDMI cord. We're going to have to use some technology. I was going to do it just with the printout, but I think this will be a lot more effective. Good. So, the great garbage patch of the Pacific. We are faced right now, as Charles Dennis stated, with a tragedy of magnificent, massive proportions. There are 5 of these garbage patches, actually. They're called gyres on the planet. I call them the 5 great garbage gyres. Alliteration there from memory sake. And we look at this and we say, well, what is happening here? Where did this come from? Obviously, these are not naturally occurring items that are floating in the sea, and it's really not an issue of anything other than human neglect, avarice, greed. You can perceive it in any number of ways, ignorance, and there are ways that we can stop this, but this is a result in the way I'm positing this, coupling with Tim's speech and with Charles's, that our society is one of an amazing amount of excessive consumption. So I'm going to try to dovetail the two, where fasting in most countries is a complete anathema and makes no sense, but in this country we are so excessive with fasting, with diet and just compulsive eating, that we need to fast. So to the point of Charles's, this is just a result of excess. We've had too much. The globe is being swamped with all of the waste that we throw into the rivers, streams, and it's an environmental hazard. And we all know of this. It's a really bad thing, but there are ways that we can adjust and try to address it, and that is what I would try to impress upon you tonight as well. 6 simple ways to make your world a temple. Your temple. Now, the body being your temple is wonderful. When you want to fast, it's going to save your life, literally, to the point of Tim's speech. You'll live a little bit longer. We learned that in the 20s during the Depression, when you don't consume as much, particularly less animal meat in your diet, more plant-based, you do live longer. There's plenty of studies and research and proof that shows that. To Charles's point, reuse, refuse, and recycle. Don't just throw something out, use it again. I'm drinking out of an aluminum canister here tonight, and I have brought in the past many times plastic bottles. That will be no longer. Exhaust the useful life of everything from smartphones to automobile tires to even the automobile itself. I brought here with me tonight, believe it or not, 6 not very old, but potentially somewhat used, but still very useful smartphones. Why? Because when I went in with a little problem to the Verizon store to Sprint over the past 10 years, and I keep these things mostly for the photos, the person there told me, well, you need to upgrade. You know, this is a Samsung 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. Now, with the Samsung 9, I'm not an iPhone guy, and the Samsung 9, for those of you who aren't aware, looks like this. It's very small, but it's packaged like this. Guess where all this goes if it's not properly recycled and ends up in the wrong place? Well, there's plastic in here. There's all sorts of terrible toxins, theoretically. There are even some items in here, I've had this for 6 months. I don't even know what, this is a plug, I'll probably never use it. So these are excessive items that we just don't need, technically. So try to limit that, recycle when possible, but now we've found that the recycling bins and recycling facilities actually can't hold all the recycling, so it's going to the landfill. So it reverts back to just reusing until it dies. If your tires on your car are flat, try to keep them until you can use them till the last minute, and just don't drive quickly in the rain. You'll actually be fine on flat, dry surfaces with tires. Reduce animal meat intake. That really does affect the rivers, streams, oceans. It's terrible what the fertilizers and other, not to mention the atrocities that take place in the slaughterhouses, which is part of the environment in this wonderful world we live in. So think of it as your temple and expand upon the body as a temple and use that paradigm, and I think you'll get far in helping remove and reduce this type of a predicament that we find ourselves in. Lastly, donate to Save the Planet nonprofits. There are plenty of them that help the oceans, that help. There's one known as the Ocean Preservation Society. We all know about Greenpeace. There's this one called 4 Oceans that's great. The one that Louis Siosis in the middle, he's the guy who's the director for this, probably an Oscar, I would imagine, winning documentary. James Cameron, he has nothing better to do than to obviously spread the word in this. He's not in it for the money. He's the Oscar director, executive director and executive producer of this, and director of Titanic and Avatar. So he's doing this for a cause. It's a real deal. These people are legitimate. He's a ultimate fight champion who is totally vegan, and he's part of the cast. It's coming out in the fall. So that's a documentary to learn. And these are some of the vegan athletes, getting to Tim's point about not only putting food that's properly organic and basically vegan or plant-based, which helps the environment. These guys have a ton of muscle, and the misnomer of protein from meat leading to muscle is completely refuted by these amazing athletes. They're world class. That's Serena Williams and Venus. They've both been. Carl Lewis, 9-time gold medalist. You don't need animal protein. You don't need to consume animals. The guy in the middle is the strongest man in Germany. He's lifted something like 1,500 pounds in a deadlift and taken it across like a 50-meter. It's a challenge. It's the world's strongest man. He's been the champion of that a couple times. So enough said on doing what's right for yourself and what's right for the planet. And lastly, I'll leave you with some fodder for future reference. Al Gore's movie is great. Eat Fast, Live Longer, the one that Tim recommended. What the Health, interesting orientation about not sugars but meat being the real culprit in obesity. And if you're obese and overweight, you're not going to be able to scratch your annexus. And then Game Changer. So Marlee Matlin put it succinctly, Oscar winner for Children of a Lesser God. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. So go out there and make some changes and help make the world your temple.